My heart shattered when my son declared, "Change your mind or leave." So I sold our home. The walls echoed with the weight of his words. I'll never forget the feeling like a knife slicing through the fragile space we once shared. The air stood still, thick with tension. My blood ran cold. Michael, my bright-eyed boy with a heart so big, now stood before me, a storm brewing in his gaze. The living room, usually a sanctuary of laughter and love, felt like a cage. I glanced at the family photos lining the mantel, snapshots of happier times, frozen in possessiveness. There we were, birthday parties, lazy Sunday mornings. But today those smiles twisted into raindrops of sorrow. Why can't you understand? My voice trembled, breaking the silence that hung like fog. I wanted to shake him, to tear through his stubbornness, but my hands felt heavy. The house was crumbling. Our family was fraying at the edges behind him. Shadows danced against the walls. I wondered if they too felt the crushing weight of uncertainty. Michael had been drifting, a ghost in his own home. His teenage rebellion morphed into something darker, something almost mythical. His whispers of change became a monstrous roar. I sometimes thought I could hear him calling out to unseen forces. When I recounted this day to my therapist, she paused, looking at me with concern. "What are the signs?" she would ask. I found myself searching the corners of our once vibrant existence, chasing the echoes of laughter that had faded away. My husband, Jason, was out of reach, lost in his world of work, ignoring our crumbling foundation. Could he feel the vibrations shaking our family? I yearned for his reassurance but felt like I was reaching for an empty sky. My heart raced in a frantic drumbeat. What if this was the end? I felt sweat trickle down my back as I considered the impossible. Selling our home felt like a sacrilege, as if sacrificing the soul of our family. Yet, as desperation filled the void, strange visions pierced my mind. Was it time to leave this weight behind? The idea stirred something deep within me. The thought was terrifying. What lay beyond? As Michael's words scalded my thoughts, I glanced outside. Trees swayed, their limbs reaching out like frightened fingers. Down the street, strange lights twinkled. They blinked like an otherworldly invitation, urging me to step beyond the threshold of my life. My pulse quickened. Change loomed like a specter, tantalizing and horrific. Could I face it? I took a deep breath, my chest tightened, and my throat felt like sandpaper. What was happening to my son? To our family? I felt like a detective grasping at threads of a mystery unraveling too quickly. But there was something else, an unsettling thrill, a spark flickering in the midst of my despair. Was there hope hidden in the chaos? Or was I simply a fool dancing on the edge of an abyss I couldn't comprehend? I didn't have the answers. Not yet. But I stood there, caught in the limbo of loss and potential, wondering if selling our home would lead me to freedom or an irretrievable fracture. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days that followed were like walking through a dense fog, disorienting and heavy, full of uncertainty and unease. Each morning the sun would rise, casting light on the remnants of what once was. Yet I felt tethered to the ground, unable to lift my head to see the possibilities that lay beyond the mist. I had put the sign in the yard, a stark proclamation of my intentions to leave, but the heartache that trailed behind it felt like a shadow, relentless and consuming. The house was quiet, too quiet. Michael had retreated into his room, leaving behind the boy I had known and loved, transforming into a figure shrouded in defiance and silence. It was as if I could feel the cool walls of his closed door pressing against my heart. Every creak of the floorboards beneath my feet sounded like a heart-wrenching whisper, urging me to intervene. Yet I feared that any attempt would push him further away. On one particularly difficult afternoon, I sat in the living room, folding laundry, an endless cycle that felt like an echo of the mundane comfort we once relished as a family. The smell of freshly washed fabric mingled with the bitter hint of regret, and as I turned to place a shirt on the couch, my gaze fell upon the small blue box nestled among the cushions. It was a time capsule of hope, the last birthday gift I had given Michael, filled with little treasures. A handwritten letter, his favorite snacks, and a few small toys that he had tucked away, possibly forgotten. I took a shaky breath and opened it, the scent of paper and memory washing over me like a wave. The letter described the qualities I cherished in him, the laughter that could light up even the darkest days, the kindness he showed to others, and the moments that made motherhood a joy. I could feel tears welling up in my eyes as nostalgia rolled over me like a tide. With a resolve I hadn't felt in weeks, I headed toward his door. Knocking gently, I didn't want to intrude on his solitude, but my heart longed for a connection. "Michael," called softly, "can we talk?" Silence enveloped the space on the other side, and just as doubt crept in, the door creaked open a fraction. His eyes, usually bright, were weary and clouded, yet there was a flicker of surprise that darted across his face, a momentary crack in his armor as I held out the box. "I found this," I said, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. "I thought you might want it back. There's a piece of you in here." As his fingers touched the box, our eyes locked, and for a brief moment time stood still. The weight of unresolved feelings hung between us, an unspoken plea to bridge the chasm that had formed. He hesitated, and for that split second, hope surged within me, perhaps we could find a way back to each other. Yet, just as quickly, his expression hardened, and he stepped back, the door creaking shut with an audible finality. The echo bounced in my mind, igniting fresh pangs of despair. It felt like a door slamming down on my own heart, leaving me grappling with the enormity of what was unraveling. I sank to the couch, feeling utterly lost. The next few days were a relentless cycle of attempts and failures. Jason remained preoccupied, buried beneath layers of work, seemingly oblivious to the whirlwind of change racking our lives. I caught glimpses of Michael at the dinner table, his eyes fixed on his phone, disengaged from conversations. I poured my heart into every question, seeking signs of life in the boy I'd raised. But all I received was a cold stare and unmovable wall. One evening, after another failed attempt at parent-son bonding, I ventured out into the night, feeling the desperation claw at my throat. The air was crisp and stars twinkled overhead, distant and alluring. I found myself walking toward a local cafe, where soft music played, mingling with the scent of freshly brewed coffee. As I entered, a gentle warmth embraced me, igniting a flicker of solace amidst the chaos, and then, amidst the hustle of patrons, I noticed an unexpected soul, an old woman seated alone at a corner table, her knitted shawl draped around her frail shoulders. She wore a compassionate smile, seemingly unperturbed by the world around her. Our eyes met, and in that moment, something gentle passed between us, a recognition of shared solitude that was profoundly healing. I found myself drawn to her, the rush of emotions spilling over as I approached. "Can I sit with you?" I asked, betraying my vulnerability even as words caught in my chest. Her smile brightened, and she gestured to the empty chair. "Of course, dear. Sometimes we all need a listening ear." And so I poured out my heart, my confusion, my despair, the fear of losing Michael forever. She listened intently, her eyes reflecting the wisdom of someone who had weathered storms far greater than my own. With every word I felt weight lifting, and for the first time, there was softness in my sorrow as we spoke. Her gentle insights looped around me, weaving threads of comfort. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small token, a charm carved in the shape of a heart. "Keep this," she urged. "Let it be a reminder that even in despair, kindness exists. It may not feel like it now, but change can carve paths to growth too." I held the charm in my palm, warmth radiating from it as if it were imbued with the energy of hope. But just as I felt a glimmer of understanding, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket. Michael's name flashed on the screen. I blinked in disbelief, my pulse racing. Why was he calling now? I excused myself from the table, my heart a tumultuous dance of anticipation and dread. With every step away from the warmth of the cafe, I felt the heaviness of my reality settle on my shoulders again. "Michael," I answered, trying to mask the tremor in my voice. He sounded uneasy, almost frantic. "Mom, I need to talk to you," he breathed, his vulnerability cutting through the night like a dagger. "Can you come home?" In that moment, everything hung in the balance. The promise of hope mingled with the shadows of fear, and as I turned to leave the cafe, my heart pounded in my ears. What awaited me back home? Would it be the connection I desperately craved, or would it deepen the chasm that had formed between us? The drive home felt suspended in time, the charm pressing into my palm a reminder of the glimmers of hope amidst the tempest. I prayed it would be enough, but as the familiar shape of our house loomed ahead, I understood that whatever lay ahead would demand every ounce of courage I had left. The air in the house felt electric, charged with the weight of impending revelations as I stepped inside, the familiar scent of the place stirring feelings of nostalgia wrapped in anxiety. Michael stood in the middle of the living room, his posture rigid and his arms crossed, a visual manifestation of everything that had been said, unsaid, and twisted between us. "Why did you call me?" I ventured, my heart stumbling over itself as I sought to gauge his mood. The door clicked shut behind me, sealing us in a cocoon of shared silence and unresolved conflict. He hesitated, biting his lip as if testing whether the words could withstand the pressure of the moment. I wanted to talk about the house. My pulse quickened, each beat pounding with the potential of what those words could mean. "What about it?" I asked carefully, bracing myself for the worst. He glanced down at the floor, the shadows stretching beneath him conveying a sense of withdrawal I was all too familiar with. You're really leaving, aren't you?" His voice cracked and it melted something cold in my chest, a reminder of the boy I once knew who wore his heart on his sleeve without fear. "Michael," I started, but the abandonment that laced my words turned to ashes. I knew I had caused this distance, but the thought of actually losing him felt like a gaping wound, too raw to take in. "I can't handle it," he blurted out, his eyes blazing through the tears that threatened to spill over. "You can't just sell our life away. It feels like you're leaving us. Don't you care about what happens next?" His words hit me like bricks. Each accusation punctuated my chest, the painful reality I had tried to avoid slamming against my heart. It made no sense. I was driven to leave because I cared, because I thought it was what we needed to heal. "I'm trying to be strong for you, for both of us," I finally replied, each syllable wrought with desperation. Michael shook his head, frustration amplifying his features, reducing our shared love to an abstraction. "This isn't being strong. It's running away." He took a shuddering breath, and the anger thinned to something more raw and vulnerable. "Why can't you just change your mind?" A small hope flickered within me, nestled among the chaos. Maybe we could salvage this, but dread clawed at my resolve. "I don't know if I can," I admitted softly, a tremor in my voice. "But I don't want to lose you." He turned away, his back to me as he wrestled with his own emotions. I followed, wanting to grasp his attention, to gently unravel the tension coiling around us. "Michael, I know you're angry, but we need to talk. Please just let me in. Let me help you through this." He glanced at me, the tears brimming in his eyes capturing my heart in a tumult of sorrow. "Help? You want to help? Then don't leave. It's as simple as that." The finality of his words felt like an icy blade cutting through the thread of hope I had been clinging to. It was as though he had laid stripped bare my intentions, revealing the raw nerve of our uncharted territory. "I wish it were that simple," I whispered, feeling my heart fracture yet again. But sometimes we have to make the hardest choices to find a way back to who we are together. And then a surge of courage propelled me. What if we promise to do this together? If I leave, I need it to be our choice. We can explore what life looks like beyond this house side by side, with me supporting you every step of the way. His silence was deafening, yet hope punctured the thickness of the air between us. Just then, the faintest hint of sound broke through the tension, a reminder of life outside our cocoon, fading in from the street. My heart sank as I recognized the familiar grind of Jason's truck, making its way up the driveway. The worry that had been building in my chest intensified. This next conversation would bear the weight of everything. "Michael," I began, but before I could gather my thoughts, the front door swung open. Jason stood illuminated by the porch lights, eyes glancing between us, instantly picking up on the heavy atmosphere. "Hey, is everything okay?" he asked, his voice laced with genuine concern. Michael looked at me, searching, and for a moment, I cursed the ever-looming specter of conflict that hung over us all. I sensed unease but also a flicker of something else, an opportunity. But how could I open that door without toppling everything? As I drew in a shaky breath, ready to bridge the gap and engage with Jason, the doorbell chimed again, startling us all. I glanced toward the entrance, where the unexpected sound sent a shard of dread through me. Who could that be? I muttered, anxiety pooling low in my stomach. Before anyone could answer, I shuffled over to the door, my heart pounding louder with each step. But when I opened it, the air left my lungs at the sight before me. A figure from the past stood there, holding a letter. The moment stretched, forcing me to confront a reality I had long buried. Jessica. The voice came out almost in disbelief. The fleeting glimpse of recognition punctured the tension in the room. Jessica, standing on the threshold, looked as surprised as I felt. The letter in her hand dangled limply, but her expression was a mixture of nostalgia and concern. I got your address from a mutual friend," she managed to say, her voice a whisper tinged with trepidation. Behind me, I could feel Michael's restlessness, his frustration silently brewing, and I glanced back to see the lines of anxiety etched on his face. It was as if the arrival of this long-forgotten specter had added yet another layer to our already complicated web of emotions. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice a forced calm that barely masked my confusion. "I know this is unexpected," she said, her eyes darting between Michael and me, "but I think it's important that we talk." I opened my mouth to respond, yet words caught in my throat. Here was a ghost from a life I thought I'd reconciled with, standing at my door while my own family was drowning in turmoil. Michael shifted on his feet, arms still crossed, the tension palpable. "Who is she?" he shot at me, his voice edged with suspicion. "It's okay, Michael," I said, trying to keep the peace. "Jessica and I," but Jessica interjected, holding up the letter that seemed to weigh heavy with the promise of truth. "I came to tell you about your father." The weight of her words clamped around my chest, stifling the air. Memories of weekends spent in his worn-out car blended with the pain of unresolved distance. "What do you mean?" I whispered, searching Jessica's eyes for answers while Michael's expression fluctuated between confusion and anger. "There's so much you don't know," she replied, her voice faltering. "About his health, about what does this have to do with us?" Michael interrupted, his voice trembling with rage and hurt. "Why are you dropping this bombshell now? Can't you see we're facing our own crisis? Michael, please." I felt the urgency in my voice, desperate to keep our fragile connection intact while grappling with this unexpected revelation. "Let her speak. We might need to listen." Jessica nodded, relief washing over her. "Your father is sick. He has been trying to reach out to you to mend things, but he didn't know how. He thought if he waited long enough, maybe you'd come around." My heart sank lower with each of her words. The idea that time could act as a healer felt impossible and maddeningly out of reach. "And you're here to play messenger?" I asked, my voice dropping to a low murmur. There was bitterness, but I couldn't shake the flickering hope that perhaps this could change things. "I just thought you should know," she said gently, looking intensely at me, as if trying to impart something far deeper than the surface of her words. Michael shoved his hands into his pockets, his expression softening but still guarded. "Did you come here just to stir up old wounds?" "No," she exclaimed, her voice rising. "I came because you deserve to know, to have the chance to decide how this ends. Your father, he wants to make amends. What does that matter now?" Michael spat, frustration bubbling over. "You think words can change what happened? You think he can just apologize and it'll fix everything?" Jessica's temper flared as well, and the air prickled with a raw energy. "You're fighting a battle against yourself, and it's consuming you. You think distancing yourselves from one another will help, but it only deepens the pain. You don't know what you're pushing away, the potential for healing." My heart conflicted with the truth in her words, pooling with a mixture of pain and hope. Could my father truly be worthy of forgiveness? Was it possible to bridge the chasm that had grown wide between us? I turned to Michael, the sparks in his eyes reflecting my own confusion and hurt. "I need time to think," I said softly, the weight of it all culminating in a cascade of emotions. "If we talk to him, maybe we can find our way back to each other. Is that something we could consider?" But Michael stared at me with a blend of disappointment and stubbornness. "You're talking about reaching out to someone who walked away from us. You're selling our home, and now where does that leave us?" In that moment, I saw the reflection of my own turmoil mirrored in his gaze. I wanted to reach out, to reassure him that healing was possible, even in the face of betrayal. "It leaves us with a choice," I responded, fighting to hold his gaze. "To either take a step toward what could be a path of forgiveness or to stay stuck in the pain." He clenched his jaw, my words hanging in the air around us like a fragile promise. But before he could reply, Jessica cleared her throat, the letter swaying gently in her grasp. I can give you the details if you're open to hearing them. A silence enveloped us, thick as fog and weighted with meaning. Every fiber of my being screamed for a resolution, yet here we were caught in a whirlwind, teetering on the edge of choices that could change everything. Just as I began to open my mouth to refill the void with purpose, the room trembled with a sudden knock on the door. My heart dropped as dread rippled through me again. A premonition that whatever awaited us beyond that threshold could either offer salvation or further shatter the delicate pieces we were still holding on to. Who else could that be? Michael's voice echoed my own trepidation. An ominous feeling nestled deep within my stomach as I approached the door once more. The last glance I caught of Michael's face burned into my memory, an image filled with uncertainty and fear. When I opened the door, my breath hitched. It was not just another unexpected visitor. Mom, the voice was barely above a whisper, yet the weight of it crashed over me like a wave, leaving no room for air. My heart stopped. I need your help. The moment hung in the air, suffocating and silent. My mother stood at the threshold, a silhouette forged from years of absence and regret. Lines etched deeply into her face hinted at a story I had long since buried. A story that now threatened to seep through the cracks in our fragile existence. I need your help, she repeated, her voice steady yet tinged with desperation. Beneath the flickering light of the hallway, I felt Michael's gaze shift from me to her, a mixture of confusion and incredulity etched on his features. The air had become electric with unspoken tensions, and I could sense the tremors of change crawling closer, threatening to engulf us all. In the space of a breath, memories rushed back to me. The little girl who clung to a promise that her mother would return, the silence that followed her departure, and the chaos of trying to fill the absence. I swallowed hard, summoning every ounce of courage to confront the tidal wave of emotions crashing over me. What do you mean, Mom? You just left. After everything, her eyes shimmered with unshed tears, reflecting a depth of sorrow that made my heart ache. I know. I've made mistakes once I can never take back. But things have changed. I'm not the same person I was, I promise you that. I came back because I need you, because I've finally accepted that our family needs healing. Michael's sharp intake of breath cast a shadow over my thoughts. And what about the man who walked out on us? Are we supposed to mend the pieces while he remains absent? There was a steeliness in his voice, and I admired his resolve even as I felt the burden of my own turmoil weighing heavily upon me. I'm not asking you to forgive him, my mother replied, her voice steadying slightly. I'm asking for a chance like you've been given. I'm not here to disrupt your lives or bring back old wounds. I want to help us help you. A knot of anger and fear twisted within me. Help us? After years of nothing? You think saying you care now somehow changes the past? I know it doesn't. Erase the pain, she implored, taking a tentative step closer, her eyes wide and pleading. But I'm living with the mistakes I've made. They haunt me every day. I want to be part of your life again if you'd let me. Shocked, I glanced at Michael, who wore an expression of incredulity masked by resolve. At what cost, though? What does it mean for us to welcome her back? His voice cracked slightly, revealing the frailty beneath his anger. The flickering hope that perhaps we could somehow rebuild a bridge, but terrified of what it might entail. I don't expect anything, my mother whispered, brushing a tear from her cheek. I only ask for an audience for you to hear what I have to say about how we can move forward. The thunderous silence loomed between us, a vacuum of uncertainty and dread. I felt my heart pounding against my ribcage, caught in a whirlpool of longing, grief, and a desperate desire to believe in the possibility of healing. Your father, he is not the only one who needs a second chance, she continued, her gaze shifting from me to Michael. I want to be given the chance to prove that I can be here for you truly this time. And then there was Jessica, still stood beside me, the letter clutched in her hands like a fragile lifeline. The revelation of my father's illness hung thick in the air, an unwelcome specter of family bonds that had shattered years ago, while a canvas of new conflicts loomed before us. You don't have to choose one or the other, she offered softly, stepping forward almost as a voice of reason in this seething storm. You can embrace both paths. Talk to your father, explore the possibility of healing there, and give your mother a chance to redefine her role in your life. But reality pressed heavily against my chest, every word draped in skepticism. What if it's all just a facade? What if she's only here because of the gravity of my father's situation? I'm here for you, not him, my mother insisted, her gaze piercing mine. I'm not asking for forgiveness today. I just want to be a part of your lives again, no matter how messy it may be. Time felt suspended, stretching painfully as if the universe itself held its breath in anticipation. You think it will be easy? I finally asked, my voice trembling with emotion, unsure how to balance hope against the weight of a history that lay heavily in the echoes of our past. Nothing worthwhile ever is, she said, her voice strong but sorrowful. But I'm willing to face the music if you will, even if it means sitting in uncomfortable silence as we navigate this. Michael's eyes searched mine, the air crackling with possibilities, the tension around us thick enough to cut. What do we do? He asked softly, a fragile glimmer of hope seeping through the storm of unrest. My heart raced as I peered into the unknown, burdened with the weight of choice. I felt my voice tremble as I whispered, we take one step forward together. But before I could gather the strength to rise, the ominous thud of a second knock echoed through the hallway, slicing through the fragile intimacy of our moment. What now? Michael breathed, his anger rekindled. With a trembling hand, I reached for the door, heart in my throat, anticipation and dread battling within me. As I pulled the door open, the shock of another familiar face sent my heart plummeting into a chasm of disbelief. Jessica, I'm sorry for everything, the newcomer said breathlessly. Things are worse than you know. We need to talk about your father. And it's urgent. In that instant, the room seemed to spin. The universe was shifting again, and with it came the shattering realization that fate had other plans for us, ones that would pull us deeper into the entangled web of our fractured past. The door swung wide, revealing Mark, my estranged father's brother. His brow furrowed with a mix of concern and urgency that suddenly drew the room's lingering tension sharply into focus. The past hadn't just knocked, it had barged in, demanding our attention once more. Where's Jacob? He asked, his voice steady yet tinged with something unspoken, as if he held the weight of a secret that could shatter any fragile ground we dared stand on. Mark? I queried, bewildered, my heart racing in confusion. Here in this moment, engulfed by bitterness and new unease, I felt a storm brewing. What do you know? The silence hung heavy, a curtain drawn tightly around us as my mother recoiled slightly, her face painted with dread, as if the mere mention of my father's sickness had triggered something deeply ingrained in her. Is he okay? I stammered, fear leaping into the forefront of my mind. Mark looked to me, then shifted his gaze to my mother, their shared history crackling in the air like a live wire. We need to talk, he replied, his voice steady, but I could sense urgency simmering beneath. Jacob needs someone, it's serious. What's wrong? I pressed, the sense of impending loss washing over me, fear gripping my heart like a vice. The memories of growing up without my father were vivid, and the thought of him suffering had me clenching my hands into fists. Let us step outside, Mark said, looking around the cramped hallway as if sensing the charged atmosphere. All the conversations, all the hurt, all the unresolved pain flooded through me as he nodded toward the porch, a place that once held the laughter of a family now splintered beyond comprehension. With an inward sigh, I stepped out, followed closely by Michael and Jess, who wore expressions that mirrored my own mix of concern and confusion. My mother lingered at the door, hesitating in the threshold, part of her wanting to listen, part of her still caught in the shadows of past choices. I didn't want to bother you, Mark said as we gathered just outside. The night murky and quiet except for the distant rustle of leaves. But Jacob, he has taken a turn for the worse. The doctor says he might not have much longer. A churning mix of sorrow and disbelief twisted in my gut. How do you know this? Why now? I pressed, feeling as if I were caught in a whirlwind of emotions that threatened to sweep me away. The pain of the past seeped back in like a slow poison. Because Mark paused, looking at me with troubled eyes, he finally admitted it. He is sick. Really sick. And it's been eating away at him. He doesn't want to die without reconciling with you. The words hit me like a stone, and I stumbled back, fighting to keep my breath steady. For so long, my father's vacuous presence in my life had felt like a wound, permanent and raw. After all these years, he thinks he can just swoop in and make amends? I could feel anger flaring up, threatening to drown out my shock. After everything? I know it's complicated, Mark responded gently, but you know him. He is terrified. In his own way, he wants healing, wants to be there for you. He is regretful. His existence has been consumed by what he lost. I looked at Michael, searching for a sign of solidarity, of that tether that had kept me level amidst the chaos. But his eyes mirrored mine, wide with confusion and uncertainty. I could feel the tremors of fear in the air, a storm gathering strength, ready to strike at the heart of everything I had tried to harden against. What does this have to do with my mother? Is she back because of him? I gasped, feeling betrayal sting the corners of my heart. This can't be happening. Jessica's hand nestled into mine, reassuring in a time when the ground felt unsteady. Wait, she breathed. Maybe this is an opportunity? A chance to find peace? If he's open to the idea, but I recoiled at the thought. At what price, Jess? Let them both into our lives again? To have our hearts broken all over again? I don't want to relive this. Jacob's time is limited, Mark interjected, his solemn tone grounding me, forcing me to face the reality of the situation. If you want to heal, you need to confront it. All of it. Your father doesn't have the time for hesitations. With each loaded word, a chasm opened deep inside me. I felt as if I were standing on the edge of a precipice, one foot ready to leap into the abyss of my family's chaotic legacy, filled with despair but also the simmering potential for healing. What do you really want, Jessica? I suddenly asked, intrigue threading through my desperation. A new family? An alliance against the pain? What about the scars we are carrying? Jay, I want you to decide what's best for you, she replied softly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. But I also want you to remember that change doesn't always have to feel like punishment. Sometimes it's just an invitation to let love in, even at its hardest. Love? I sputtered, the laughter painfully hollow against the weight of this ongoing saga. This doesn't feel like love. The air felt thick and electric in that moment, a stark reminder that this web of family fragile, yet potent, was ready to ensnare us once more. The escalating possibilities rushed through me, each moment thrilling yet terrifying. I can't be part of this. I took a step back, desperate to retreat from the circumstantial tide of hurt and regret. Then something shifted in me, a recognition dawning. I don't know what to do now. Mark's eyes bore into mine, sincerity flickering amidst his sadness. Sometimes the hardest paths can lead to the most profound places, he said softly. Don't give up yet. In that moment, the earth seemed to spin beneath me, turning possibilities into daunting realities. My heart thudded in my chest as I returned to our home, glancing towards my mother, who still lingered at the doorway, a fragile silhouette against a backdrop of so much unresolved pain. Talk to him, Mark urged me gently. What he's asking for now, it's everything you've always wanted to know, the truth. Don't let fear win. As I stepped back into the warmth of the house, the echoes of my past swirled around me, and I faced a complicated choice, laden with raw emotion and uncertainty. The door closed softly behind me, the world beyond dimming, leaving me caught between the shadows of history and the light of a moment that could redefine everything. In this delicate dance with fate, I stood at a precipice, heart pounding as I whispered the promise I could neither fully accept nor reject. I'll find out the truth once and for all. The dawn crept in with a hesitant light, filtering through the grimy window pane, casting half-hearted shadows across the living room. I lay awake, wrapped in a cocoon of fear and uncertainty as the events of the previous night replayed like a film loop, each frame pulling taut against my heartstrings. I couldn't shake the impact of Mark's words, the weight they carried pressing down on me, twisting into an ache that settled deep within. What would it mean to confront my father? To peel back layers of pain and disappointment etched into my very being? When Jacob had walked away all those years ago, he hadn't just left. He had taken a part of me with him, replaced by a longing for a presence I could never fully know. And now he was sick. My fists clenched as I wrestled with my thoughts, an internal battle brewing between the desire for closure and the instinct to protect myself. Jay, are you up? Jessica's voice startled me, a soft knock on my bedroom door breaking through the fog. I could hear the worry in her tone, a subtle reminder that I wasn't alone in navigating this storm. Yeah, just a minute, I called back, pushing away the dull feeling that stuck to my bones. I knew she would be waiting, perched on the edge of uncertainty herself, ready to tackle today's emotional tirade with care. As I rose from bed and made my way to the kitchen, I caught a glimpse of my mother sitting at the table, her fingers tracing over the scuffed surface like it held the secrets of our past. Her brow tightened as she sensed my entrance, and for a fleeting moment, our eyes met, two souls wrestling with a shared history that neither wanted to fully acknowledge. "Good morning," I murmured, uncertain how to navigate this new territory of coexistence we had stumbled upon. "Morning," she replied softly, her voice barely above a whisper. It was the resignation in her tone that struck me, as if she too was trying to comprehend the fragile strands of loyalty and hurt that continued to tether us together. Jessica appeared behind me, offering a reassuring smile, and I could feel our unspoken bond, the steady hand ready to guide me through the turmoil. "How are you feeling?" she asked my mother, her concern genuine. "I'm coping." My mother's lips trembled as if the truth threatened to spill over. "I just wish things were different, Jay. I wish I could take back the years we lost." I clenched my jaw, the frustration boiling beneath the surface. "You had your chance, Mom. You both did." The anger resonated as it left my lips, the heat simmering within me, a byproduct of years spent feeling abandoned. Now it's all come rushing back and I don't know what to do. As I turned to the counter to pour a cup of coffee, the silence hung thick around us, a fabric woven with the fibers of guilt, anger, and the shadows of familial love. I could feel Jessica's gaze on me, firm and understanding, grounding me in a moment when I wanted to spiral. "Maybe," she began hesitantly, "maybe this really is a chance for you to explore what you've always needed from him? It might not go how you expect, but you deserve to know for yourself." Shaking my head, I surrendered to the emotional veil once more, pushing against the hope she offered. What if I opened that door only to get hurt again? I don't know if I can survive that pain again. "Life is pain, Jay," Jessica replied gently, her eyes softening. "But it's also love and healing. Maybe, just maybe, this could lead you to something different." I wanted to believe her. I truly did. The flicker of hope, however small, held a sheen of warmth against the backdrop of my heartache. Jessica had a way of cutting through my defenses, reminding me that the heart's capacity for love didn't simply vanish. It could evolve as if summoned by thought. Mark's voice echoed through the doorway, accompanied by a light rap against the frame. "Got a minute?" His presence loomed there, an embodiment of the tension we now carried as a family. I wanted to talk about Jacob. I exchanged a look with Jessica, who nodded as if encouraging me to tread this uncertain path. Taking a deep breath, I stepped into the living room, the storm of emotions waging war inside me. The moment felt surreal, slipping between reality and the embrace of my burdens. I was drawn into a conversation that promised to ricochet through every fragile thread of connection I'd ever had with my family. Mark settled into a chair, his face a canvas painted with nuances of concern and sincerity, perhaps my only ally in navigating this chaos. "I know this isn't where you want to be, but Jacob is waiting for you. He's prepared to meet wherever you're willing to meet him." As I felt the intensity of his gaze, a lump formed in my throat, thoughts swirling. There was an undeniable ache in my chest for the man I had once dreamed of, the father I needed, but the shadows of rejection also pulsed with their own veracity. The thought of facing him clawed at my resolve, unraveling layers of protection I had wrapped around my heart. "I want to push you," Mark continued, his tone sincere yet laced with an undercurrent of urgency. "But he's terrified, Jay. He's willing to face the mistakes he made. It's just a matter of whether you're ready to face him." Every instinct screamed to protect myself, to keep the walls high. Yet beneath the armor of hurt, a flicker of curiosity danced within me. What if my imagination of my father didn't match the reality? Could there be pieces of himself left to share, fragments of potential healing underneath all the scars? Then my heart lurched, unprepared for the crushing weight of an unexpected realization. Meeting Jacob might mean finally accepting the past, letting go of the control I had clung to for so long. "I don't know," I exhaled, my voice barely a whisper. "What if I find that I hate him more? Or worse, what if I don't know how to forgive?" In that moment, hope and despair collided, pouring out into the space around us with the intensity of a storm gathering weight. "Then at least you'll finally know where to go from here," Mark affirmed, his conviction fueling something deep within me. "Maybe it's learning to hurt a little less." And then, as if drawn by a tremendous pull towards fate, the unthinkable happened. My mother, who had remained silent, peered at me across the room, her voice raw and trembling. "You have to try, Jay. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do. But it's the only way to move forward." Her breaking tone echoed against the walls, piercing me with a tremor of disbelief. Hope and fear intertwined in a dance too familiar, begged to be set free. Every shred of self-preservation whispered to run from this roller coaster of emotion, but deep down, there was flickering possibility, a chance to transform grief into something living and breathing, something alive. As I stood on the precipice of decision, teetering between the consequences of fear or hope, a sudden thought struck me, a raw whisper of danger and realization carving its way through the haze. What if I walked away now, only to regret it tomorrow? What if Jacob wasn't the only one waiting for resolution? My heart raced, spiraling with the weight of uncertainty. It was a chance to shape the story anew, to face the uncomfortable truth that had haunted me for so long. And just as I was about to utter my next words, the phone rang, slicing through the tension in the room and leaving us frozen in place, all eyes darting toward the source of the sound that promised to change everything. The phone echoed in the weighty silence, a sharp and jarring intrusion into the fragile moment we were trying to navigate. It rang again, its persistent insistence urging me closer even as my heart thudded against my ribcage in trepidation. I exchanged glances with Mark and Jessica, both mirroring my uncertainty but equally drawn to the mystery that lay on the other end of the line. "Are you going to get that?" Jessica asked softly, her eyes searching mine, as if she could read the storm brewing inside me. I nodded mechanically, moving almost as if on autopilot to reach for the phone resting precariously at the edge of the counter, its screen blinking to life with an unfamiliar number. But before I could answer, my mother spoke, her voice shaking slightly. "Jay, wait." Her tone felt heavy, layered with an urgency I couldn't quite decipher. I paused, the phone still ringing and the weight of my mother's gaze pulling me back into her world of regrets. "What is it, Mom?" She hesitated, her expression faltering between the threads of fear and hope, wrestling with her own past. "Just be careful. Phone calls can carry more than just voices. They can bring news you didn't expect. Are you saying I should ignore it?" My voice edged on frustration, the anxiety climbing higher with each heartbeat. "What if it's important?" "It could be," she replied, her eyes widening as if searching for the right words to tug at my heartstrings. "Or it could be something you later wish you had never heard." Her words dripped like honey, sweet but laced with bitterness, and in that moment, the weight of her fears fell upon my shoulders, threading the fragile connection between us with shared anxiety. My instinct told me I should either let it ring or answer it with trepidation, prepared for whatever truth lay hidden behind that incomprehensible number. But curiosity, that relentless beast, gnawed at me. Despite the trepidation vibrating beneath my skin, the call could represent a decision point, a chance to seal the deal on my path toward understanding. I took a deep breath and answered, the device pressing against my ear. "Hello?" I waited, the tension manifesting in a bead of sweat trickling down the back of my neck. When the voice finally came through, it was strained and ragged, every word weighted with urgency. "Jay." "Yeah, this is me," I replied, my heart slamming into my throat. "Who is this?" "It's Nathan," the voice trembled. "I am calling about Jacob." In that moment, the world outside faded as the name resonated in my mind like a bell tolling, heralding the chaos of unfinished chapters and unspoken words. My breath hitched, terror racing through every inch of my being as confusion mingled with a flicker of hope. The name sent thunderous echoes of my childhood reverberating through the walls of my memory, colliding with the very uncertainty I had been wrestling with that morning. "Nathan," I repeated, struggling to catch up as fragments of memory slipped through my fingertips like sand. From childhood?" "Yes," he said, his voice breaking as if laden with the weight of years gone by. "Listen, Jay. I don't have much time. It's about your father. You need to know something. It's important." My pulse raced, both from the adrenaline surging through me, and from the sheer disbelief at Nathan's urgent tone. "What about him?" "What do you mean?" "Jacob, he's not just sick. He has been through more than you can imagine. He is trying to reach out to you not only because he is facing his decline, but there are things he never told you. Not just regrets but revelations, truths that could change everything for you. You need to hear it from him or you might not forgive yourself for not knowing." I gripped the phone tighter, drowning in the swell of emotions that threatened to pull me under. "What kind of truths? What are you talking about?" My mother clenched her fists at the table, the strain of the situation crackling with energy that buzzed in the air, while Mark leaned closer, his face lined with concern. "Nobody wants to dig into the past, Jay. But what you need to know, it revolves around you and the decisions that were made without your understanding." Your father wants to clear the air, and if I were you, I would listen. Time's running out. An icy shiver shot through my spine as the gravity of Nathan's words settled into place. My mind raced, spinning with disbelief and fear as questions collided. What could be so important that it would shift the very foundation of the life I had built around the absence of my father? Is he really ready to talk? I choked out, every ounce of longing meeting trepidation like a collision of two worlds. Yes, Nathan affirmed, his voice steadier now, as if a sense of urgency had merged with solidarity. But you should come soon. Promise me, Jay. Your father needs you, but you need this too. It's a chance, a real chance to make sense of everything. With Nathan's words ringing in my mind, a swirl of emotions swarmed within me. Thick and chaotic fear of confronting the past, fear of what I might discover, yet also tinged with the hope Jess had spoken of. Deep down, I felt a flicker of determination glimmering beneath all the uncertainties as it fought against the shadows of self-doubt. Okay, I finally replied, the word tasting bittersweet on my tongue. I'll come. As I hung up the phone, the weight of my decision settled like a heavy mantle on my shoulders, savoring the sensation of stepping into an uncertain future. Just then the door swung open, and a gust of wind swept into the room, heralding a storm outside both in nature and within my heart. Who was that? Jessica asked, her eyes alight with curiosity and concern. The answer I wanted to give stuck in my throat, tangled within a web of unresolved feelings. So I simply looked at her, the fear mingling with a flicker of hope. I have to meet him, I finally said, the words tasting foreign yet necessary. I have to see Jacob. Almost as if in response to my declaration, thunder rumbled ominously in the distance, a powerful reminder that change was coming, whether I was ready or not. There was still uncertainty, of course. Clouds loomed heavy with unresolved emotions, and yet from within the tempest, I felt the stirring of something profound. A chance to reshape my story. But just as I stood on the precipice, grappling with the enormity of the moment and eager for what lay ahead, Mark's expression shifted. Behind him, the door creaked ajar and a familiar figure stood framed in shadow, the brim of a hat obscuring their features for a fleeting instant, a ghost from the past suddenly re-emerging. With my heart frozen, I held my breath, steeling myself for whatever revelation would follow next. The atmosphere in the room seemed to thicken with an anticipatory hush, each breath held suspended in time, as the shadowed figure stepped forward. The low light revealed a face that had haunted my dreams for years, a face I had tried to forget. It was my father, Jacob. Jay, he said, the tremor in his voice not unlike Nathan's, but it carried the weight of a lifetime of regret. I didn't think you'd come in that instant. My heart raced with a bizarre mixture of shock and confusion. What are you doing here? I stammered, each word dredging up the memories of childlike hope and immense disappointment that I had buried under layers of indifference. I was about to talk to Nathan, he interrupted, a hint of desperation creeping into his tone, as if the mention of his brother's name contained some sort of power. He called you, right? To tell you I'm not as far gone as everyone thinks? My mother's silhouette wavered in the background, her expression a meticulously crafted mask of stoicism, though her eyes betrayed a storm of emotion. You weren't supposed to be here, she murmured, compelling and frightened all at once. The words fell from her mouth like stones dropped into still waters, creating ripples that threatened to drown us all. I know, Jacob replied softly, his gaze darting between me and my mother. But I couldn't let another day pass without trying to what? I interjected, my voice rising with confusion and anger. Trying to paint a pretty picture? Because it's too late for that. You made your choice long ago. You chose to leave, to disappear when I needed you the most. And now you want to just walk back in and pretend everything is as it should be? The tension became palpable, radiating from each of us like heat from a flame, threatening to ignite an emotional inferno. I could see Jessica and Mark exchange worried glances over Jacob's shoulder, almost as if seeking refuge in each other from the storm brewing in the room. Jacob stepped closer, his hand reaching out tentatively, halfway between us, as if testing the waters of reconciliation. I came back to admit my mistakes. The truth is I was afraid. Afraid of what I had become, of the hurt I had caused you all. I see that now. I've spent years in a darkness of my own making, thinking I could somehow spare you from my failures. That crack in his facade, that hint of vulnerability, hit me like a bolt of lightning. For a brief moment, The wall I had built around my heart buckled just enough to let a shard of understanding slip through. But why now? Why after all this time? I asked, my voice softened, mingling skepticism with a flicker of hope. I heard you've been searching, he said, his voice raw with emotion. Nathan told me you're struggling to piece together the person I abandoned. I want to help. No, I need to help. I owe you that much at the very least. And more. The apology trembled in his words like a promise hovering on the verge of fulfillment. For a moment we stood there, the past and present colliding around us in a tempest of unresolved feelings and spiraling questions. My heart ached to accept the bridge he offered between us, yet fear tugged me back, like an unsnappable thread still connecting to all the hurt he had caused. Help, I repeated incredulously. You think that talking now will magically erase years of absence? You think words can mend what has been broken? Maybe not erase, he admitted softly, but perhaps we can start anew. I just need a chance to explain. No, my mother interjected sharply, stepping forward, shaking her head vehemently. You lost your chance, Jacob. You don't get to just waltz back in and demand a place at this table. You can't turn back the clock. The pain in her words cut like a knife, a desperate plea for us to see the truth of the wounds left untreated. Who was there for him when you weren't? She continued, her voice climbing an octave in anguish. Who bandaged the wounds you left behind? Can you answer that? Silence enveloped the room like smoke, thickening between us, choking off any chance of easy reconciliation. Please, Jacob urged, desperation clawing at his words, a reflection of the same anguish that clawed at my own heart. I'm here to listen. I want to hear your stories. I want to know how I failed you. Let me be a part of your life again if you'll allow it. As emotions surged through me like tidal waves, I glanced at Jessica, sensing her quiet encouragement, a gentle reminder that my decision did not solely rest on the weight of years pulsing silently in this room. Yet the words I wanted to say got swept away, lost amidst the chaos threatening to consume us all. No, I finally breathed, my voice steadier than the chaos swirling inside. I don't think I can do that. The disappointment in Jacob's eyes mirrored the echoes of my own pain, and it stung like an open wound. I can't run back to you now, Dad. Too much has happened. What happened with Mom, what you left behind? I need time. At that moment, with thunder rumbling outside and rain drumming against the window like a frantic plea for understanding, new thoughts began to crystallize within me, shadowy reflections igniting flickers of determination and fear. Jacob stood in front of me, not only as the father I had longed for but the embodiment of my unresolved grief and unanswered questions. The echoes of Nathan's words resonated in my mind. The truths your father has to share. They could change everything. But was I truly ready to hear them? And before I could begin to contemplate the path ahead, a sudden, blaring sound pierced the air. My phone erupted back to life, an urgent notification lighting up the screen. My heart seized as I glanced down, recognizing the caller's name immediately. It was Nathan. No, I gasped, feeling the blood drain from my face as Jacob's eyes widened in shock, and my mother's expression shifted to one of dread. This last moment of uncertainty wrapped around us, pulling me back into the storm yet again. Before I could answer, I knew one thing with a visceral certainty. How much would change in my life hinged on that call. What was Nathan about to reveal? I stood there, every breath feeling heated and heavy, with the ringing phone echoing in the fragile silence that enveloped our family. Jacob's presence loomed before me like a specter from the past, a blend of regret and hope, yet another layer of complexity woven into our already tumultuous narrative. My heart raced, caught between the looming confrontation with him and the familiarity of Nathan's voice on the other end of the line. Nathan breathed, urgency lining his tone. You need to come to the hospital. It's your father, it's serious. The weight of his words mirrored the burden I carried on my shoulders, the desperation of a man seeking not just closure, but perhaps a chance for something sweeter, a reconciliation that had become elusive in the years we had walked separate paths. Hospital? I repeated, my mind whirling in a tumult of disbelief. Jacob's gaze held mine, his eyes pleading, as if he could sense the intensity of the storm brewing within me. What is happening? Just come, please, Nathan urged, and in that moment, the world narrowed down to a single truth. This call center stage had shifted into a center of gravity that I could no longer ignore. With a sigh heavy with resolve, I nodded toward Jacob, my voice breaking. I have to go. The implications of my words hung heavily in the air, igniting a flicker of alarm in Jacob's eyes. "Jay, wait," he interjected, but I stepped back, cutting off the rising hesitance in his tone. "I need to figure this out, Dad. And right now, that means I have to go see Nathan." "Yes, right. If there's something more at play here, I want to understand it." My mother's tentative hand reached for Jacob's shoulder, grounding us amidst the frayed threads of this charged family dynamic. "Go, Jay," she murmured softly. "You need to honor this call. We'll figure it out together." Even as I turned toward the door, stepping out into the storm that settled outside a tempest, matching the chaos in my heart, I felt the cool kiss of rain against my skin, mingling with the boiling emotions that threatened to spill over. I climbed into the car, hands gripping the wheel, knuckles white as I steered my way to the hospital. The rain fell in heavy beats, the raindrops splattering against the windows like the memories that haunted us all. With each passing minute, fear clutched my chest tighter. A storm of feelings had awakened in me tonight that I wasn't sure I was ready to face. Suddenly, as the hospital loomed closer, an unexpected thought broke through the chaos. Could this moment be a chance to confront everything, a chance to lay bare the past, unearth the pain, maybe even find a new kind of hope? Or was I simply setting myself up for heartbreak once more? A cycle repeating endlessly? As I parked and sprinted into the hospital, heart pounding, thoughts ricocheted inside my mind, fear of reconciliation, and healing wedged between doubt and the longing for those answers that had eluded us for too long. I found Nathan in the waiting room, his brow furrowed with concern. The sight of him stirred familiar memories. Laughter shared over childhood adventures, fading snapshots of friendship that now felt ghostly beneath the weight of the present. "Jay," he whispered solemnly, catching my gaze, his eyes reflecting the urgency that gripped my heart even tighter. "Yes, in a rough place. There's so much we need to address if there's any chance to heal old wounds." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. What's wrong? I deserved a better preparation for this. The rush of emotion felt suffocating, lurching as if I stood on the edge of a cliff, readying for a leap into unknown waters. "Just understand that some things are very fragile right now," Nathan cautioned, guiding me toward a small room further down the hall. "He wanted to talk to you in case there wasn't tea time later." My heart raced, every footstep resonating with the chaos within. Each beat echoed against the ache of setting aside the pain. Could confronting the past open the door to finally reclaiming everything I had lost? Through the door I caught glimpses of Jacob's pallor, inching closer to reality, and suddenly the weight of fear materialized before me. What truths still lingered cloaked in shadows? What could he possibly unravel that hadn't already twisted my heart into knots? Nathan kept pace beside me, steady and solemn. "You can do this, Jay." I nodded, steeling myself before pushing through the door. The moment felt slow, suspended, as if the entire world held its breath at the revelation that awaited beyond these walls. Jacob lay on the hospital bed, a fragile shadow of the man I had once yearned to connect with. His eyes softened at my appearance, a mixture of relief and apprehension residing behind the recognition. "Jay," he rasped, words catching in his throat like 1,000 unspoken stories. "Dad," I managed, feeling the fissures of pain crack my facade. The finality of this moment was no longer just the weight of the past. It was the acute awareness of the present, a life teetering on the precipice of lost time and second chances. "I'm sorry," he breathed, eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I've held on to the regrets for too long and the truths have become my burden. I don't have enough time to fix it all, but I need you to know." As he spoke, time became irrelevant. The hospital room fell away. The heartbeat within my chest quickened, and for the first time the possibilities stretched before me like a boundless horizon. Heart and mind collided in a symphony of emotions, and I grasped the weight of what lay in his truth. Whatever revelations Jacob had held close were unfolding in my presence, ready to be unwrapped. "I'm ready to hear you," I offered softly, feeling the walls built around my heart starting to crumble. And with those words, that moment became transformative. Everything hung in the balance, the future. The choices dealing with love and pain, each pulse merging and converging into pathways forward filled with fragile hope. But just as he began to speak, the past ushered in another interruption. A soft knock on the door. My pulse raced with expectation and dread as it swung open to reveal my mother, a picture of uncertainty written across her features. "Jay," she whispered, her voice barely above a hush, while Jacob turned his gaze between us, heart hammering in the burgeoning silence. As I stood there, confronted by the two people who had shaped my heart's every conflict, something shifted within me, a realization that despite the weight of history and pain, the journey of healing began now, in this moment, together. Together, I repeated softly, morphing into a promise that the future was not shaped solely by the ghosts of our past, but also by the love we aim to find amidst the wreckage. And as I stepped forward, grasping both my parents' hands, I uttered the words I had long yearned to say, a glimmer of truth breaking through the turmoil. Forgive you. Let us find our way back. In this act of vulnerability, I felt the chains binding us to our shared narrative begin to dissolve. The echoes of laughter, of hurt, of love lost and hope regained intertwined, crystallizing into a shared understanding that perhaps, just perhaps, this was the beginning of our new story. And somewhere beyond the turmoil, a warm light flickered against the cold gray of uncertainty, a promise of healing that wrapped around us, ushering in the dawn of new beginnings where hope could emerge from the ashes of heartache. In that confluence of moment, the world outside faded into silence, and we stood united, the echoes of our past drifting away as we traveled toward the light together. In the gentle creak of love rekindled and the weight of pain shared, I finally understood that sometimes the most profound journeys do not begin with the end of loss but the heart's capacity to rebuild after grief, and every whisper of hope reminded us that life forever moves forward, a continuous circle shaped by the choices we dare to make. And so, with hearts bound by love, I finally let go of what was lost to embrace what could yet be an infinite journey forward.